I never imagined that a motion sensor malfunction would unravel the darkest secrets of our quiet suburban neighborhood. But here I am, recounting how my wife and I became unwitting heroes in a story that started with something as mundane as a beeping garage sensor. It all began on an ordinary Tuesday afternoon as I was hunched over my laptop, debugging yet another stubborn line of code. The beeping sound from the garage motion sensor was nothing new. It had been going off every day at exactly 3:07 p.m. for a week. My first thought was that the sensor had malfunctioned, but something didn't sit right. Hardware doesn't just break on schedule. It's always a symptom of something deeper, and I, being a software engineer, couldn't shake the feeling that someone, or something, was triggering it on purpose. Sophia, my wife, was on the front porch reading one of her crime novels. She didn't seem particularly bothered by the sensor, but I could tell she had noticed the pattern too. Sophia's got that quiet analytical strength from her years as a police detective. I watched her from the corner of my eye as she observed the garage, always studying, always processing. I could almost hear the wheels turning in her mind. Then she saw it too. The day's disruption came not from the sensor itself, but from the arrival of Karen Blackwood, president of the Willowbrook Estates Homeowners Association. She strutted up our driveway with the sort of arrogant confidence that only comes from years of pushing people around. She wore a crimson blazer, more expensive than my monthly car payment, and carried a clipboard like it was some kind of weapon. "I'm Karen Blackwood, president of the Willowbrook Estates HOA," she announced, her voice sharp, cutting through the still afternoon air. "And we have a serious problem." She lifted her phone, as though preparing to live stream our execution, and showed me an app that supposedly measured sound levels, which, frankly, seemed more like something out of a fortune cookie than a legitimate tool. "Your garage sensor has been violating HOA Regulation 47B for the past week. The noise level exceeds 35 dB during afternoon quiet hours," she declared, making it sound like the sensor was personally responsible for the collapse of civilization. I tried to explain, but Karen wasn't interested in reasoning. "This isn't about a malfunction, Mr. Hale. This is about compliance," she said, waving a document at me. A noise violation cessation agreement that she wanted me to sign immediately. But when I looked at the form, something was off. She'd misspelled my name as Gibeon Hale. Not a typo, but a deliberate error. That's when my instincts kicked in. Sophia, ever observant, had noticed something else. A key, small, unremarkable, peeking out of Karen's blazer pocket. And it wasn't just any key. It looked identical to the spare key we kept hidden in case of emergencies, the one we kept for our garage. The realization hit me like a punch to the gut. Karen had been in our garage. "I need you to leave," Sophia said, her voice calm but carrying an undeniable authority. Karen, to her credit, didn't flinch. She merely smiled, promising to return later that evening with the full power of the HOA board. But I could feel the tension rising. Something was wrong. Karen's visit wasn't about a motion sensor. It was about something far more sinister. That night, I dug through security footage, my mind racing. What I found made my blood run cold. Calvin Brewster, a man I'd never seen before, had been in our garage 3 times in the past week. Each time, it was during the day when Sophia and I were both at work. But what struck me was how methodical he was. He wasn't just looking around, he was searching, measuring, even installing something. Surveillance equipment. My fingers trembled as I backed up the footage, saving every frame to cloud servers, setting up hidden cameras of my own. Sophia was already one step ahead. She'd taken photos of Karen's behavior, analyzed her body language, and observed every detail. It didn't take her long to piece things together. Karen wasn't just a power-hungry HOA president. She was involved in something far darker. By the time evening came, our garage had turned into a bizarre courtroom, complete with folding tables and a gathering of our neighbors, watching with eager anticipation. Karen had dressed the part, of course, in her most intimidating business suit, ready to present her case. But as she began waving documents, old property surveys that looked blurry and fake to me, Sophia spoke up. "I've been listening to your presentation," she said, her voice cutting through the noise. "And I've identified several inconsistencies. First, that key in Miss Blackwood's pocket is a master key, which means someone with access to our property gave it to her deliberately. Second, Mr. Brewster's uniform has never seen the inside of a police station. And third, this meeting is based on a property survey that was created on someone's home printer. The room went quiet, the atmosphere thick with suspicion. Karen floundered, trying to defend her fraudulent documents, but it was clear her scheme was unraveling. I could almost feel the weight of her growing desperation. But that was just the beginning. Sophia kept her calm as the confrontation escalated, but I could see the tension in her posture. Calvin moved toward her, his hand drifting toward the handcuffs hanging from his belt. The room held its breath, waiting for him to make his move. And that's when something inside me snapped. I stepped between them, facing Calvin directly. "If you want to get to her," I said, my voice steady, "you're going to have to go through me first." The room went still. I wasn't the type to stand up for myself, let alone confront someone like Calvin, but in that moment, I felt something stronger than fear: anger. Protective rage. It was over in seconds. Calvin lunged, handcuffs raised, but before he could reach Sophia, she moved with lightning speed. The next thing we knew, Calvin was on the ground, locked in his own cuffs. His backup stood frozen, stunned by how quickly their ringleader was brought down. But that wasn't the end of it. As Calvin struggled on the floor, something small and metallic clattered across the concrete. I picked it up. A recording device. The audio contained hours of incriminating conversations, plans to steal properties, fake documents, and worst of all, Karen's confession to orchestrating the death of one of our elderly neighbors, Mrs. Patterson. The evidence hit us like a sledgehammer. It turned out the HOA wasn't just a group of overzealous homeowners. It was a front for a criminal syndicate. Their goal? To defraud elderly homeowners, steal their properties, and, if necessary, eliminate any obstacles in their path. Wilson Patterson, the elderly neighbor who had mysteriously vanished, had been their first target. The next day, the FBI arrived. Special Agent Martinez, calm and professional, introduced herself and confirmed our worst fears. Karen and Calvin were part of a larger criminal enterprise known as the Sunset Property Group, which had been operating across multiple states, targeting elderly homeowners with elaborate scams. The evidence we had uncovered was enough to expose the entire operation. Wilson, it turned out, was alive. He had been hiding for months, watching as his daughter, Karen, and her accomplices systematically preyed on his neighbors. The federal investigation would soon bring down the entire operation. And though Karen and Calvin were arrested, the damage they'd done to the community would take years to heal. But in the end, our neighborhood was stronger for it. The garage, the site of so much pain and deception, became a community center where neighbors gathered to rebuild. The motion sensor, once a symbol of our distress, was reprogrammed as part of a new security system for everyone's protection. I never thought I'd become part of a story like this. But here I am, telling it, reminding myself, and everyone else, that sometimes the most dangerous threats are the ones hiding in plain sight, disguised as authority figures. And sometimes the heroes aren't the ones wearing badges. They're the ones standing up for what's right when the world seems determined to tear it all down.